So one of the first stages in this process, we need to use freezer paper. Now, a lovely company called Reynolds freezer placer, freezer paper, which is plastic coated. Now, they call it freezer paper, but it one side is like normal paper, and the other side has got this coating on it. And I guess if you wrap your meat, you know, your chops or your um, liver or your mincemeat or whatever, and wrap it up, the plastic coating stops any sort of blood or what have you soaking into the paper, so it keeps it nice and fresh in a turned over and folded packet, so that you can put it in the fridge, put it in the freezer, blah blah. This is how it was initially made for, but as you can see here, it says used for crafts, arts, and used for arts and crafts, which is what we actually do because it's wonderful stuff. When you iron this, put material on it to the plastic coated side and iron it, it sticks. And you can easily then pull it off. So it gives it that temporary stiffening, which is what we want to go through our printer. So I'll just open it for a moment. I mean, you can buy these in a lot smaller. I got 150 square feet here. What's that mean? 33.5 yards. I mean, God knows this is going to last me probably till I fall off my perch. So there it is. This side is the paper side. And I don't know, but I'm hoping that under camera I can waft it around enough for you to see that there's a shiny side, which is the plastic coating. Okay, so now I've got, as you can see, I I need to roll this back up now. Let me just put this back in the box because I pulled off some all ready to use. So that's one thing. Okay, so that's freezer paper. So that's a definite, I would say, must. And get a smaller one, but I tell you what, sooner or later you're going to get a larger one. Now, so this was, yeah, this was the width of the roll, okay, but I cut it in half because then I get my A4 template and say, well, you know, at the end of the day, I just want my fabric to stick to an A4 sheet to go through my printer. So you could obviously use this piece of card as a template and cut round, or you know, if you're a little bit more adventurous like me, you can, and if you've done card work before, you could get over your ujit, right? What do you call these things? What are they called in real life? Not an ujit, are they? A guillotine, yeah? So to cut A4, you have to find out how to cut A4. And then, well, I'll just give you a demo, right? Then obviously, when you've sorted it all out on your cutting finger meat as you want it, and make sure that you've got everything on your thingy, then you can now literally cut it this way or that way. Oh, still too big. So I go just chop off a bit more as we go, right? So that's using a paper guillotine. Now let me get my, oh yeah. So more or less I am, right? I have cut a bit of curtain lining. Number one, it has to be, what would you say, sympathetic to the project that you're using, so you want the right colour. You don't want it to be too dark because you want the printing to show through. And I don't want it to be too flimsy that the colour of the actual print will show through it. So I've cut it, and I've cut it to be, you know, practically the same sort of size as the sheet that I'm going to use. And now I'm going to go over and iron it onto the freezer paper, wax side up, and iron it onto printer freezer so that we can use it. So having done that now, you can see that you can lift it up, it will peel off, and I wanted it to be, sympathetic with the top of the paper to go through the machine, and then you have to decide which way will it go through the machine. Now I know my printer goes through like that way, so you have to be au fait with the way your printer works, and then we need to lay this down in the printer drawer, ready for it to be selected and go through as the next thing that we print. Okay? Now, whatever you want to print, I suggest you do on a word processor like Word or something like that. Okay, so I've just brought this back. As you can see, it's printed out lovely. I did change some printer settings. I said I was using thick paper, and I asked it to print at best quality. So having got what I want, boom, 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 it comes off the freezer paper. And the nice thing is given that this is our nice A4 size freezer paper, yeah, guess what? You can use it again and again and again. Yeah? So you can use that for next time. So now we've got a bit of fabric that we want to use. Okay, so now this is the important part now. How do we want to fashion it to applique to our project? There's a couple of ways. But before we decide on that, the very first thing we need to do is to take this over to the ironing board, and so that we do not smudge the ink. Yeah, and now I've given it a few minutes to sort of like sink into the fabric. I'm going to put a hot iron. When I say hot, I mean cotton, not linen. Hot iron, cotton. I am just literally going to press that with a hot iron, which will seal the ink into the fabric with heat. Okay, I would say that I've just done it, so I would say I put my hot iron cotton setting down on it, and I counted to 10 seconds, and then took it off. Now that is nicely dried and totally into the fabric. Now if we were doing this for something else, there are other processes that you could use with dipping it in a bath of solution and what have you to keep the colours and wear on fine. But we're putting this on a notebook, and I don't think you're going to wash your notebook cover, are you? So, it can stay as vibrant as this on the front of your notebook cover. So what are the next steps? Well, there are several ways in which we can, let me just put it round to you so you can read it. There are several ways in which we can applique this, yeah? We could cut it around the line. I've given myself a line because I like the shape. You could literally cut it or cut it just, 1/8 of an inch round the line, and then just blanket stitch it or single stitch it around the line to attach it. You could do that. Or you could cut it 1/4 inch away from the line, yeah, all the way around, and then turn under the edge as you go, turn under the edge so that it gives it a finished edge all the way around. Or you could do it the way I am going to do it, okay, which means taking something, it could be anything you like really. It could be a bit of interfacing, yeah. It could be a bit like I use all the time, some sort of soft stabiliser. So, that's great. No show mesh stabiliser. I have just cut out a bit. Okay, so let's bring this forward. So I've just cut up a bit that will fit over the top, right? And naturally, you could use anything on here, but I am using a bit of stabiliser, which I'm now going to just pin in place. Okay. And then, well, I'm not sure, I still haven't decided what to do. I'm one of these people, I don't decide until I'm sat at the machine and then I do it. But, yeah, I can sew outside, on the line, or inside. So I'm going to sew around that outside frame. I think I'll probably just do it on the orange bit. And let's see what happens. Alright, because I'm not that bothered. So I am just going to go to the machine now, and using a 2.5 stitch, I am literally going to sew that banding line. As it turns out, I decided to sew 1mm inside that line. I did put my machine on applique mode, which means foot up every time you take your foot off the pedal. Every time you stop, foot comes up, which allows you then to slightly adjust the material. And yes, I did sew it at a snail's pace. You can't do anything accurate fast. So have a look at that, but that's what I decided to do. I'll zoom it in so that you can. Right, so what's the next thing we've got to do? Well, apart from take the pins out, There you go. Love pincushion. Right. Then the next thing that we need to do, you can see my white stitching, to be honest, but never mind. Beg my pardon. So now what we need to do is to cut into the design, and because mine is curved, okay, I'm doing a narrow margin all the way round in some, here we go, memory, obviously I'm getting old, can't remember things, with some pinking shears, alright, and the whole idea of pinking shears is that you don't have to make hundreds of little cuts, so that you can turn things around or inside out, and these cuts around give you the strength, you know, rather than snipping everywhere on your curves. Using pinking shears allows you to do it all in one go, alright? You may have zigzag ones. I got a couple of pairs. This one is like a more of a roundy one. So that's that, okay? So now, so how do we turn it out? Well, how we turn it out, getting a nice sharp pair of scissors, and please do not cut through the material underneath. We need to pick up. There you can see, I am, well, I know I am. When I put my scissor point in, I know I've just got the top layer, yeah? So I'm just going to do a cut across the middle, might go a bit further that way, not too much, and a cut towards one side, a cut towards the top. So I've just made a cross in the middle there, can you see? Yeah? So now what I'm going to do is use that cross to turn it inside out. You know, and this is always a messy process, isn't it? Turning things inside out, but they will come, and they do happen after a while. But you know, you can get literally, there we are, look at that, it's wonderful, isn't it? No, it's not. So you get a turning tool like this one, okay, this clover, this one, and then you go in with the clover and you gently, and I mean gently, I really do mean gently, because the last thing you want to do after going through all this process of printing, making it look nice, doing it wonderfully, the last thing you want to do, and I am literally going in and turning, right, you want to just bring out the shape And if that's too pointed, we'll then go in with the blunt end. That's why it's got two ends, yeah? So you can be a bit more forceful with the blunter end, okay? So you're going to get that nicer turn on it. I got like 4 corners, I got 2 corners I'm happy with, and 2 I'm not happy with. That one hasn't come out at all, has it? So I am literally just screwing it till it comes my way, which is what I wanted. And then there was another corner, that one. I'm not happy with that one at the moment. But again, I'm just easing very, very gently. You go in there with a pair of scissors, as people do, I've seen them do it. Do not be surprised when you get a really great hole in a corner and tufty wufty fabric sticking out, and there's nothing you can do about it. And after having gone through all, as I said, after going through all this process, you do not want that to happen. Now the next step, so there it is, oh, there it is to you, and obviously the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and give that a, when I'm entirely happy, because I'm a bit hard to please me, but when I'm entirely happy with the unique shape of that, I will, oh that's pretty good, that one, and about, just prop it down and give it a right good go on the middle bits. That was the only bit I wasn't happy with. Right, there, see, gets better all the time. So now I'm happy with the shape of that, and I'm glad I went the 1mm in from my stitching, because now you can't see the orange line I have around the outside. You might like the orange line, in which case then sew 1mm or 2mm outside the line, so you've still got the line. It's up to you. However you do it, remember you've always got at least 1mm in the turn of fabric. So if you want to show, go 2mm out. Yeah? Don't want to show, go 1mm in. Okay? So now there's my little label. I'll go and iron it and come back to you. Right, so okay, it's teeny tiny. I've turned around to you now. It's teeny tiny now, isn't it? But that is, I'll make the camera come in on it. But that is as much as I want. It is a turned under, because you can see now, see, here's the back of the interfacing, or as I've used, stabiliser, yeah? So it's a turned under applique. So it's very easy for me now to stitch it down when I'm ready onto my project, which will either be with a blanket stitch or with a running stitch. I don't tend to use satin stitch, because I think with applique I just I do in some ways, but on something as delicate and as small as this, if I did a huge satin stitch all around it, I would feel that I'd probably make a mess of it. So a nice blanket stitch, a zigzag's good, or a running stitch. Because it's turned over, it's never going to fray, yeah, because it's within a seam, so it's never going to fray, so that would be enough. Alright, so that's how you do, as we started off with this, inkjet printing onto fabric that you can then use as a label or as whatever you want it to be on your project. I do this all the time for things like quilt labels. On the back of my quilt label I always print them out, but I think lots of times, like if I could find, is it near somewhere? Where have you gone, you little sod? I saw it. Oh, here we go. Now, this was a notebook I made, but obviously on this one I'm using an embroidery machine. So all of this is embroidered and then set down with fancy stuff and what have you. But we, you know, if we're just using an ordinary machine, we can't do that. But I think that that's a very nice for what we're going to do. I'm going to lead you into doing, which is a notebook cover. So that says notes.